I've gone back and forth about whether or not I should respond to this particular video that I saw recently. It's titled "The Dark Side of Queer," drawing quotation marks, "from autistic to trans," and then in brackets, psych deep dive. I have a screenshot and I think it was originally titled something like "The Autism to Trans Pipeline," something like that. It isn't just about trans people though, it's about LGBT autistic people in general, but it's kind of been floating around in the back of my mind and frustrating me in the background because it just takes infantilizing autism to a whole new terrifying level. The video is from Arielle Scarcella. She's a lesbian content creator who is pretty controversial within the LGBT community. If you take a look at some of her tweets, you might be able to see why. Do you say tweets anymore? Do you say X's? If you take a look at some of her X's, you might see why that sounds like it has a different meaning. She actually started making content like 14 years ago, and in the beginning it was kind of, just early YouTube stuff, gay and lesbian kind of stuff, and she's had this sort of slow evolution into the kind of content that she makes today. Most of her content is kind of negatively reacting to LGBT creators, particularly trans and non-binary creators, and as you can probably tell from her thumbnails and her title, she kind of goes out of her way to make the people featured look ridiculous. And yeah, apparently now she responds to content from autistic creators as well. So I'm gonna have a look at the video and respond to it today. I don't know, sometimes it's difficult to know, like, should you really be drawing any more attention to these horrible things? But at the same time, I feel like I have some important points to make and things that I would quite like to say, and I know that people are sometimes met with these attitudes online and also in real life as well, and so maybe videos like this can be helpful. I don't know.
Autistic people are more likely to be LGBTQIA+. But why is this?
Important distinction here. She said that autistic people are more likely to be LGBT, not LGBT people are more likely to be autistic. What came first, the chicken or the egg? The autistic or the trans? Did she just say the silent part out loud and admit that people are thinking that they're trans or queer or non-binary or something because they have autism?
I mean, that just leaves me kind of absolutely speechless. People are thinking that they're LGBT because they have autism, as she says. What is she trying to say here? You can't legitimately be LGBT if you're actually autistic as well. Why is that? The implications here are really scary to me. Does she think autistic people don't have the capacity to make decisions for themselves, for their own lives, for their own bodies? And remember, she's responding to autistic adults here. So do we trust straight autistic people to know that they're straight then? Or are we trying to say that no autistic person should ever have a relationship? That we don't have the capacity to know who we're attracted to? Can we consent then? Can autistic people consent? What are we trying to say here? Yes, of course, many LGBTQIA+ individuals are not autistic, but also many are, and there is a correlation there. I'm not sure there's any need to ask which came first. I'm not really sure why that's relevant.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? The autistic or the trans?
A person can be multifaceted and have many different parts of their identity, and that's fine. A lot of autistic people don't really care about social norms, so maybe as a general rule, autistic people are more comfortable with coming out, which is what Jenna actually goes on to say in the rest of this TikTok in this beautiful crocheted rainbow top. Thank you for, bringing a little bit of joy to this depressing video. But of course, Arielle, cuts it short. She doesn't include that bit in her video. I wonder why.
Autistic people often don't have the same relationship to gender and sexuality that allistic people do. We tend to be less influenced by societal expectations. We often don't understand social norms, so we don't have a need to follow them. And I want it to be clear, just because there is a correlation, it does not mean that autism causes someone to be LGBTQIA+.
Yes, correlation, not causation, for sure. Who knows why many autistic people seem to be quite gay? Does it matter? If being LGBTQ+ is not a negative, I don't really see why it should matter.
Welcome to another psychological deep dive.
LGBT damage control coming up in like that neon text, like, okay. So this psychological deep dive is a series that she does, I think. Okay, let's get ready to dive deep, everyone.
I have been researching this for quite a while, the better part of the last 5-6 years, and I have come to the conclusion that there are 5 main reasons why people like this, people that are autistic,
people like this, things like that always set off alarm bells.
People like this, people that are autistic, are easily targeted by the queer activist movement.
Watch out for the queer activist movement, everybody. They're coming to make you gay. Again, there is this implication that we don't know our own minds, that we're too stupid, that we are incapable of having insight into who we are because we're autistic. I find that so incredibly infantilizing and insulting. How would Arielle feel if someone tried to question her understanding of her own sexuality? What if they tried to say, oh, you were influenced because of movies you watched when you were growing up, or something like that? I mean, if anything, I feel like living in this world is just being subjected to constant campaigning from the straight activist movement. Isn't that just kind of what society is?
And this is coming from a lesbian, okay? Keep that in mind.
It's frustrating because content creators like Blair White, like Book Angel, and Arielle, Blair and Book are trans and Arielle is a lesbian, and they kind of subscribe to these conservative talking points. But because they are LGBT themselves, it kind of gives them a sort of credibility almost. People might look at it and go, oh my gosh, see, somebody who's actually within the group is speaking out now. So you know what? It must be true. It's kind of like if I came on here and just started making, like raging ableist content or something, some people probably would be like, well, she is autistic, But I do wonder why people like Arielle, Blair, and Book, why do they make content like this? Is it some sort of internalized homophobia or transphobia? Is it about desiring acceptance from the people who kind of disapprove of your identity most of all? I don't know. Maybe it's nothing to do with that. Maybe it's just about money and finding a niche online and trying to keep your career going. I mean, I guess Arielle's still here after 14 years.
First of all, there is a very, very major difference between being LGBT and having a mental illness and having a mental illness that makes you think you're LGBT.
As we know, autism is not a mental illness. Every time I say that in a video, I get so many comments of people quoting it with like a laughing face as if it's like the most ridiculous thing to say ever. And it's like, no, it's a neurodevelopmental condition. It's like, tell me you know nothing about autism without telling me you know nothing about autism. It's not a mental illness. Your brain has developed differently. But it doesn't mean that your brain has developed defectively or stupidly, It's so ridiculous because it's like autistic people just can't run away from either the genius stereotype, and then we also have the all autistic people are incapable of doing anything stereotype, and there's like no in between. Now, it is true that roughly about 1/3, maybe just under 1/3 of autistic people do have a comorbid intellectual disability. Important to note that that means 2/3 of autistic people do not, and people who don't have an intellectual disability are more likely to go undiagnosed, to be diagnosed later in life. And there are statistics in the UK to suggest that, half of all autistic people are not diagnosed. So any stats about autism potentially, don't include a hell of a lot of autistic people. But even if a person does have an intellectual disability, autistic or not, that does not mean that they do not deserve autonomy and human rights. I want Arielle to sit and think about what she is implying here. People who have intellectual disabilities, or as we call them in the UK, learning disabilities. I know learning disabilities has a different meaning in the US, but in the UK, learning disability has the same or similar meaning to intellectual disability. A person with a learning disability might have some difficulty understanding complicated information, learning some skills, and looking after themselves or living alone. Now, some people might think, can somebody who falls into that category, can they make decisions for themselves? And the consensus is absolutely yes, and they should be encouraged to do so. In the UK, we have something called the Mental Capacity Act, and these are the 5 principles. 1, always assume the person is able to make the decision until you have proof they are not. 2, try everything possible to support the person to make the decision themselves. 3, do not assume the person does not have capacity to make a decision just because they make a decision that you think is unwise or wrong. 4, if you make a decision for someone who cannot make it themselves, the decision must always be in their best interest. 5, any decisions, treatments, or care for someone who lacks capacity must always follow the path that is least restrictive of their basic rights and freedoms. So the implication throughout this video that autistic people do not have the capacity to make their own decisions, whether you're referring to autistic people who have a learning disability or not, is absolutely inappropriate and unacceptable.
First of all, there is a very, very major difference between being LGBT and having a mental illness and having a mental illness that makes you think you're LGBT. I'm the former. I have an anxiety disorder. That rhymed. Hire me for your next rap project.
Okay, so Arielle thinks she's the former. What if somebody came up to Arielle and said they didn't think she was really a lesbian? What if somebody said, actually deep down, you're just straight and anxious? It would be ridiculous if someone said that, and untrue, of course.
Queer actually did used to mean weird. Remember, this was only maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and nobody likes to be the weird one. Keep that in mind as I continue the video. Now queer means fun, loving, amazing, inclusive, progressive.
The way she says progressive there is just so mean and mocking. Are we supposed to agree? Like, ew, progress, that sounds awful. Please take me back to the good old days where being gay was still in the DSM. Or should we go back to the good old days where we were electric shocking autistic people who didn't have good table manners? Personally, I'd rather be here. We still have a lot of problems, obviously, but I would rather be here.
Hi, I'm Ez, and this is day 2 of celebrating queer joy, and today I'm going to talk about pronouns.
Queer joy, trans joy. Look how happy we are with being different. I don't know why I talk like that, but it kind of makes sense.
This feels incredibly infantilizing and mocking. What, do we all need to grow up and start seeing the world as grey? Is that the only way to be valid as an LGBT individual, to be depressed all the time? Does Arielle feel depressed all the time? I hope not. I hope she's not feeling depressed. All I can say is for myself, usually when I feel irritated by other people's happiness, you know, when I feel like I don't want to listen to happy music and I don't want to see any bright colors and I just want to wear black all day, that's when I'm miserable. That's when I'm depressed. That's the only time when I feel like, you know, I'm like, oh, you know, take your happiness and your joy somewhere else, please.
And look, I won't bother or burden these people with my weirdness. They accept me. They will celebrate me for it.
Throughout this video, Arielle uses some clips from a creator on TikTok called Jeffrey Marsh.
I will tell you what you are not. A burden.
Jeffrey was actually mentioned in a recent video that I watched from Matt Bernstein. It was called like Annoying Gays Are Not the Problems. Devon, the author of Unmasking Autism, was also interviewed within that video, so you might want to check that one out. Jeffrey apparently makes content that's kind of aimed at younger LGBT people in order to help them feel more loved and accepted, particularly, you know, if they are not accepted by their immediate family, which I think was Jeffrey's experience growing up. And here Arielle's kind of, you know, trying to twist it to make it seem like it's a cult, you know? They're trying to get people in with this warmth and love and acceptance, but actually there's these malicious ulterior motives somewhere. And I'm like, well, what are those motives? Why? Like, is my Discord community a cult? Am I trying to create the autism cult with this channel? She'd probably say that I was. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just about helping people sometimes when you've been through things that were traumatizing. Sometimes it can be cathartic for you as well to share that content. So there is an element of selfishness there. But, you know, it's also like a lot of people want to feel like we're doing something valuable and we're helping people. You might not like that content. You might not enjoy it. It might not do anything for you. Maybe it doesn't make you feel comforted. Maybe you don't need that. That's fine, but you know, just leave it for other people then.
Maybe this is the answer to all my weirdness. Being LGBT. Even though I'm not same-sex attracted and I don't have gender dysphoria. But look how much fun they're having. It seems to all be so full of love.
I don't know if we're mocking autistic individuals who do find acceptance within the LGBT community here. What are the implications? Are there no gay autistic people then? According to the CDC, 1 in 36 children are now being diagnosed as autistic. We don't think any of those people can be LGBTQ plus in any way. Are autistic people this like alien species who can only be straight, or are we just going with the stereotype that all autistic people are asexual, completely sex repulsed, disinterested in sex? I mean, the funny thing is Arielle would probably say that autistic asexual individuals were just being led astray by the asexual community online or something like that, so we can't really win.
This leads us into the second point. People who have autism are super specific.
I assume by this she means autistic people can have intense interests, and yes, that's true.
And they usually obsess over one specific thing. They have very strong areas of interest. I knew a guy in college that was obsessed with the New York City transit system. He literally had an entire YouTube channel dedicated to filming every single train ride, every single subway stop. He knew everything about the trains. He was autistic.
Oh no, now we're really doing autism stereotypes. I mean, yes, some autistic people are interested in trains and public transport systems, but yeah, it's such a kind of, you know, cliche autism stereotype by this point.
And keep this in mind, how much fun would it be to dive deeper into yourself? Or so they think, except you're actually not diving deeper into yourself because you're not LGBT.
Okay, so now we're saying that autistic people can become intensely interested in self-discovery and then wrongly coming to the conclusion that they are LGBT. Weren't you just saying that that guy, you know, he knew the subway system really well. He was really invested in it. He learned everything there was to know about it. Was everything that he learned and said about the subway system incorrect? You know, why is the assumption just because a person might be intensely focused on it, why do we think that that means that that person's gonna come to the wrong conclusion? I don't know, are we trying to use this, you know, subway example to kind of infantilize autistic people further? Like, oh, this full grown guy who had this little quaint interest in trains, you do not get to tell somebody else that they are not LGBT.
Because you're not LGBT.
People have the freedom, whether you like it or not, to make decisions, to come to conclusions about their own identity. I think this is why so many autistic people say that to them, autism is not a disability. People don't want to be infantilized in this way. But disabled shouldn't mean a loss of respect, a loss of rights, a loss of autonomy. And trying to suggest that somebody cannot make up their own mind about themselves, that is treating somebody as less than. That is dehumanizing. So she takes this TikTok from a bookstore called Under the Umbrella Bookstore. It calls itself a queer little bookstore.
There's a joy for queer people. It's not just coming out, it's how much gayer you get day by day. You just get gayer and more queer. Like, you feel your power grow.
Gender ideology goes deep.
So this is supposed to be a cute and lighthearted TikTok, a bit of fun, a little bit of marketing, you know. They're showing off, you know, some of their gay books. And Arielle's like trying to turn it into a conspiracy theory here, like they're trying to turn the world gay one book at a time. Look, they said they're growing their gay power, they're getting stronger. But isn't that just a play on like how good it can feel to finally accept yourself, to finally be yourself? Arielle then takes a TikTok from this autistic creator.
Number 3 is lack of social awareness.
If you're friends with an autistic person, please, please, please just say what you mean and mean what you say. I don't think people realize how traumatizing it is for people to constantly hear, oh, I know I said this, but I actually meant this.
Autistic people generally have a difficult time reading social cues or understanding social cues, reading between the lines. I might be queer, even though they have no actual definition of what the word queer even means.
So somehow Arielle goes from autistic people don't understand social cues to autistic people can't understand what the word queer means. We're just incapable. Once again, we're trying to say that autistic people are stupid, are children. Yeah, some autistic people might misunderstand body language and facial expressions sometimes. I mean, a lot of us have grown up to become better at socializing, just as all people improve with their social skills as they grow up. But you know, like messing up socially, being really exhausted by socializing sometimes, it's a bit of a crazy leap to go from that to you don't understand what it means to be LGBT. There's no possible way you could understand what that means because you are small and autistic.
The words are changing. The community is no longer gatekeeping.
Should we be gatekeeping? Are the autistic people not welcome? Arielle, do you not want there to be gay autistic people? I don't know. I don't know what we're trying to say.
And the kids are in trouble.
And I keep explaining to people what it means for me to be autistic and how my brain works and how social cues are such a struggle for me, how social norms are such a struggle for me, and people turn around and they punish me for those things. Every single person's social cues and every single person's social norms are different, and I can't keep up with it. I've tried to study myself out of autism and I just can't. I don't even know how to explain being autistic to people.
Autistic people should be able to speak up about things that we struggle with. We should be able to say, sometimes we take people literally and it can lead to misunderstandings. We should be able to say, sometimes we don't entirely get when someone's being sarcastic, when some people are joking or not, and that not be taken as you're clearly too stupid, you clearly lack capacity to make decisions about your own life. Once again, it's a crazy leap.
Here's the sad part about all of this. Even with all of the gaslighting, all of the, we love you, we love that you're different, don't ever change, we will validate your every move. Do you think in the end that anyone actually wants to be different? They say they do, but the truth is they don't.
Is this Arielle's issue? Does she not want to be different? It's giving, this is the real world, you need to grow up, no one is gonna constantly validate you, get used to being treated like crap.
Listen, it is not easy being a leader. It is not easy taking the brunt of bullshit because you are the only one speaking out against the crazy shit.
I assume she's talking about herself here with being a leader. It's not easy to be a leader. I mean, seems to be a bit of arrogance here, but okay.
And the truth is, not everyone is cut out for it.
At least Arielle is cut out for it. We get to hear all of her opinions. Yay. That is sarcasm.
So think about this. Now we have people who are odd, who are obsessed with their oddness.
Obsessed with their oddness? I mean, okay. Is this channel just me sitting here being obsessed with my oddness? I mean, kind of. Yeah, oddness and quirky earrings. That is what we have going on here in this corner of the internet. No, hopefully I'm not just obsessed with myself. That's not what I'm trying to go for here. But what I don't understand is, surely if someone is autistic and they feel odd and weird, you know, they're autistic. They can go and join the autistic community online. They already have a reason why they're odd and weird. I'm assuming if we're talking about diagnosed autistic people, like the people she's been responding to throughout this video, like, I don't really get it. There are lots of little communities online, lots of weird, in quotation marks, whatever that means, little communities, lots of very niche communities online. And I'm sure a lot of them are filled with a lot of autistic people who do have, you know, an intense interest in that particular thing. There are lots of spaces for people to go online, some great, some not so great. Why, if you didn't resonate with that experience, why would you join that community? And doesn't Arielle realize that you can be both? You can have multiple different types of weirdness, you know? You can have lots of different reasons why you don't fit the norm.
Lack of social awareness, and that brings us to number 4, depression. I'm autistic and would love to hear you try to explain to me how the relationship between transness and autism is bad. Autism affects how I experience consciousness and existence. How could it not impact how I integrate with my own body and experience being in my own body? You are probably, most likely, definitely, not LGBT. You are not living your authentic life. That's why this is bad. You are being brainwashed into thinking you're being saved.
Is it not that seeing other LGBT individuals online gives people the courage to be open about feelings that they've always had? You know, I personally feel like I can be more open about being bi or pansexual, or, you know, just not the straightest of straight people, whatever it is. Now that I have an autism diagnosis, now I'm part of this online community, now that I know how many autistic people are LGBTQ+, I know for a fact that I have had various thoughts and feelings throughout my life, and there are lots of little moments that I can point to. But obviously we live in a society where being straight, where being in straight relationships is the norm. For many undiagnosed autistic people, you know, we've spent our whole life feeling a bit weird and different, not knowing why we're so weird and different, and that can actually push us to kind of mask anything about our identity that might be seen as weird. So that could include not being straight, not being cis. You know, we might push those things down, might hide those aspects of ourselves, might tell ourselves we're being ridiculous. We just need to, you know, suck it up and be normal. And sometimes you need to see examples online of other people you relate to in order to feel comfortable enough to say, well, that might actually be me as well.
And now back to the tism.
No, people have been ruining tism for me. Like I said it when I first started the channel and stuff, I'd sometimes say tism in a jokey way. I'd say it in like memes videos. I think someone even put it on a shirt and they sent it to me and everyone was like, oh my gosh, I love it. It's cute. It's cute. I'm not saying I invented it. I'd heard other people say it as well. And now it's not cute anymore. Now I keep seeing it being used in a kind of derogatory, mocking way. And we also have people saying acoustic, trying to ruin my acoustic guitar background, which obviously has nothing to do with that. Yeah, now I'm like, oh, I have to distance myself from that one. I have to distance myself from the tism. Never mind. We'll persevere.
And now back to the tism.
In a way that makes that clear, because I keep thinking that I'm doing good, and I keep explaining to people how my brain works. I keep explaining to people how I need direct and honest communication, that I can't have inferred directions or any of that stuff because I won't get it. And I'm tired of just not feeling good enough. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard.
So this clip to me looks like it could be, I don't know, it could be an autistic meltdown. That, to me, that repetition is pretty familiar to me, and it makes me feel kind of anxious when I see it, and I start to kind of empathize with that feeling. Either way, the creator seems really upset. It's true, we do prefer direct instructions and we can struggle to understand, You know, what's expected of us if we don't receive that, or if someone says something that we perceive as a direct instruction and then it turns out, oh, I actually didn't mean that, I meant this other thing, but I said that. Yeah, it can be tricky for us. But why is this being used as an example of somebody, you know, not having the ability to understand their own identity, their own sexuality? Throughout this videos, I feel like the examples she's chosen have been really weird. Maybe she just, you know, typed in LGBT autistic, picked the first thing that she saw. Maybe she just wanted a clip of someone being emotional, a bit less rational. Oh, look, these people can't be trusted with their own lives. I thought everyone was being too joyful before. Now everybody's actually miserable. I can't keep up.
Imagine just for a second that you really do believe that you are doing good, because I know these people do think that way, because I used to be one of them. Kind of, not to that degree. That everybody in your community is affirming what you believe and what you do, and you're still miserable. What happened to the queer joy that we were just talking about 10 seconds ago? Maybe, just maybe, when you grow into something that you're not, it sucks.
Okay, so yes, so she chose this example of this autistic person in distress because she wanted to say, oh, look how miserable queer people are. Actually, they're all miserable, even though they say they're joyful. But of course, like, no one is joyful 100% of the time. I don't think anybody is trying to say that when they say queer joy. Put simply, queer joy is a concept that acknowledges the importance of joy and pleasure in the lives of LGBTQ+ individuals. It challenges the dominant narrative that being queer is exclusively rooted in pain or trauma, and instead recognizes the resilience, resistance, and creativity of LGBTQ+ people. And I'm sure most people would say, you know, if you are like Arielle, if you're LGBT and you don't like phrases like queer joy, maybe, you know, they're just not your style, you find them cringy, whatever it is, you know, that's fine. People can have different opinions. People don't all have to like the same thing just because, you know, they technically fall under the same identity or same umbrella. If that content doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't appeal to you, it's fine, you know, just express yourself and use whatever language you want to. You don't have to pick up any phrases just because a lot of other people are using them. Just maybe let other people do their own thing as well and don't try and tear them down.
Being the odd man, odd women, odd them out. Thus making it even more easy for a cult or a group or a pyramid of oppression Olympics to take advantage of you.
So she's saying this creator is actually upset because they're being forced to be LGBT. But explicitly within this TikTok, they say that they are upset because they feel misunderstood sometimes. And now they're being misunderstood by Arielle through no fault of their own. Maybe listen to people when they tell you what they're upset about and don't try and show people's lowest moments and their distress in a way to try and discredit them and their credibility and their intelligence. I don't know, it just seems really mean.
3 out of 5 women view woke ideas positively, but only 1 out of 7 men. Watch this video that I'm going to link up here and down below that I explain why women are more susceptible to these cult-like behaviors and are more likely to be indoctrinated by such.
Oh no. Okay, so now we're being recommended another video where she infantilizes women. I think I'm okay. I'm not gonna watch that one. Well, if there are any silly little women like me watching this video, and if you're silly little autistic women like me, be careful what you watch, because as Arielle said, your fragile little brains are gonna absorb it all and you're not going to question it one bit because we're too emotional, right? Because women don't have logic. No, that's not a thing. Obviously, I'm joking. Women are full human beings. Why are we still having to say this in 2024? We are, but why? Autistic people are full human beings. Let me define my gender and my sexuality. It's none of your business, Arielle. Let us make our own decisions, even if they are not the decisions you would make yourself. Let us wear things and do things without judgment, even if you think it's cringe or whatever. Let us even make our own mistakes, you know? Gosh, I'd rather do that than have somebody strip away all my rights and freedoms. Apologies that this was a bit of a heavier video. I probably won't ever respond to anything that Arielle does again. You know, it all feels like kind of rage bait stuff. I don't know how much she actually believes of what she's saying, and again, whether some of it's just about like, I found a niche on YouTube and this works for me, being a lesbian who's against the LGBT community. I don't know. If you do need to watch something a bit lighter after watching this, I'll leave my memes playlist linked above. It's just me reacting to a bunch of memes from actually autistic people. I also made a video recently kind of discussing whether or not it's appropriate to armchair diagnose celebrities. It's been quite a big discussion going around in the autism community lately. I'd love to know your thoughts on that one as well. And if you would like to see more videos like this, if you would like to support me over on Patreon, you can do. If you join the lowest tier, it's $4 US. You get access to the Discord server, so you can chat to other autistic people on there as well. You're welcome to join whether you're diagnosed or not. There's no gatekeeping. And then also I have 10 so far exclusive videos over on there as well, and 7 podcast episodes, and I think I have like 37 outtakes clips from my videos. That's crazy. And I have a load more to post, and sometimes I take out so much that it's basically a full video of outtakes. I get really ruthless with myself. I'm like, oh Meg, shut up, nobody needs to hear that story. Pew, tangent, pew, get out. Anyway, regardless of whether you go over to Patreon or not, obviously no pressure to whatsoever. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you very soon.